Hello there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I have got part 1 of my 10 cards 1 kit using the Spellbinders September 2019 card kit to share with you today. And I am jumping right in here to working with the die cuts. So this came with a die set that makes these really cute, I'm not really sure what you call them, but sort of quote boards. I have one in my craft room and I still don't know the name of it, but it is to look like the boards with the removable letters, and you can change the sayings however you want them. So I have used the cardstock that was included in the kit. I've trimmed everything out. For the background there that cuts in the smaller strips, I have created 6 of those, and I'm going to layer these here on some white cardstock just to give this a little bit more heft and to make it easier to put everything together. I have gone ahead and trimmed out my letters again from the white cardstock that was included in the kit, and I'm gonna put together here laying out the phrase, "Today is a good day for a good day." That is actually what my board says in my craft room. So I'm going to lay these out. I have sped this up quite a bit, and then painstakingly I am gluing all of these down. So if someone is a recipient of this card, I really like them. This took quite a while. I love the idea for this, and maybe there is a quicker way to figure out how to do this, but for me, what worked best was just adding a few dots of glue behind each individual letter and placing those down. To finish this up here, I'm just going to add one of these little green sprigs off to either side on the bottom. For my card here, I've taken one of the pattern papers with these gold foiled flowers, trimmed that to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, added some of that double-sided tape to the back, and I'm going to place this on top of a piece of the gray cardstock that I have trimmed to the full size of the front of the card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to add some double-sided foam tape to the entire back of this board, and then I'll peel away the backing and place that down on top of my panel. For the inside, I've lined up the sentiment, "Sending happy thoughts." I'm on a Nina panel. This is also trimmed to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I'm going to stamp this out using Lawn Fawn Deep Sea ink. I've added a couple strips of this double-sided tape to the bottom of that panel. And then I have an extra strip left over of that same gold floral pattern paper from the front. I'm going to peel away the backing here, and then I will place this along the bottom of my panel. Again, adding some tape to the back of that panel. I've also added some to the back of my front panel. I'm going to peel away the backing. And I'll place this down on the front of my card base. And then place down my inside panel as well. And that will complete card number 1. So here for card number 2, I'm working on another panel of the cut cardstock. This is again, actually all of the cardstock panels will measure the full front of the card base. That's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then all of my pattern paper and Nina panels for the inside are trimmed to that 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So I absolutely fell in love with the florals that were included in this kit. They are just absolutely beautiful. So I have created a little cluster here, and I'm gonna add those down with some art glitter glue. I will pop up a few of the edges, so I'm just adding a few dots to keep them in place. And then before I add my dimension, I wanted to go ahead and attach this to my front panel. So again, adding some double-sided tape behind that. And I'll get that placed down here. I'm going to grab some of the dimensional foam, and I'm just cutting this apart. I have used most of them at this point, so I'm just going to add a few smaller pieces. I end up using this entire packet with these cards, and then I did have some left over from some previous card kits, and I will pull in my scrap pieces of those as well. I've pulled in one of the stickers, and I'm going to place this down. And then once I had that in place, I decided I needed a little something more. It just felt kind of unfinished to me. So I am going to grab another flower and one of the smaller watercolor leaves and just position those here underneath this sticker as well. Gonna add a little dot of glue under that flower, but the sticker is gonna hold down the leaves for me. And then for these other leaves at the top, I'm just gonna take my scissors and just run underneath those. I wanted them to give a little bit more dimension, but didn't want to put any foam tape underneath them. I'm also gonna grab two more of these chipboard stickers. There were some photo corners that I thought were really pretty with the golds at the corner there, and I'm gonna add one on either end of my wood panel. I'm going to add some art glitter glue to the back of my front panel, and I'll go ahead and place this down on top of my card base. For the inside, I've lined up the sentiment with deepest sympathy, and I will go ahead and stamp that using my Simon Says Stamp black ink. I've added just one strip of that double-sided tape along the bottom of that panel. I'm going to grab an extra piece that I had trimmed off when I created my front panel from this wood pattern paper, and I'm just going to place a very small strip of that along the bottom just to cover that tape, and I will trim away the excess. Again, I've added some of that tape to the back of my panel, and I'll go ahead here and place this on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 2. For card number 3, I've got a gray front panel for my card base, and I have added in here one of the strips that I had left over after trimming out my panels from the pattern paper. So this measures roughly 2¼ inches wide. I've added some of that double-sided tape behind it, and I'm going to place this down just off to the side of my panel. I've also taken that double-sided tape and added just, again, one stripe of that along the edge of that pattern paper. I'm going to peel away the backing, and then I pulled in some tissue paper from my stash. This is actually a piece that I pulled out of my acetate that goes in between all the acetate pages. So I always try to use everything that I can from my stash, even the junk. And I'm just gonna sort of ruffle this as I place it down to give it sort of a pleated, little bit of a messy look. And then I wanted a torn edge, so I'm just gonna tear this here. Not worried about keeping it even, I just wanna get an interesting texture. And then for the edge where I have that tape, I'm gonna take my ruler, lay that down, and I'll pull this up. That'll give me a somewhat straighter edge along that line. That excess there, I will just fold over towards the back of the panel. I've grabbed this black and white frame. I really loved this frame. I wanted a couple more of these actually. And then I've got 2 pieces of the ephemera. So that Love You, I'm gonna pop up with some of the foam dots. And I'll place that peeking off of the bottom of that frame. And then for the butterfly, of course, I wanted those wings to flutter, so I'm gonna take my, I can't think of the name of it, but it's what I use to pop out my die cuts when they get stuck. And I just ran that along either side of the body of the butterfly, and then I have that nice flat section in the center there that I can glue down, and then I'll fold up the wings on either side to give that some pretty dimension. I really also loved these enamel dots that were included. They almost look like jewels the way they're faceted, and then they have that beautiful gold fleck. So I love these. I may actually pick up another pack of them. I have quite a few left, but I want to make sure that I get them before they run out and don't sell them anymore. So there I placed 3 of those around, and that pulled in a little bit of the blue from the pattern paper. I've added some art glue behind my panel here, just folded over that tissue paper, and then I'll place that down on my card front. For the inside, I'm again on a Nina panel, and I have laid out the sentiment, "Thanks for everything." I'm gonna stamp that using some Lawn Fawn Deep Sea ink. And then I've pulled in 2 more pieces of the ephemera. I'm gonna layer these leaves here along the bottom. I'll add some of that double-sided tape to the back, and again place this on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 3. For card number 4, I'm working on a panel trimmed from the brown cardstock, and I have lined up the sentiment, "You are so amazing." I'm going to stamp that using my Simon Says Stamp black ink. One thing I noticed with this cardstock, it does have sort of a slick surface to it, so if you are stamping directly on top of this, make sure you hit that with your heat gun to make sure it's nice and dry so that you don't smear your ink. I've added some art glitter glue to the back here, and I'm going to place this on top of my card base. I loved these beetles and wanted to just let them shine, so I'm going to layer these on top. I sort of was thinking of this background, you know, as the desert and then the beetles living there. So I have spared you the video of me adding all of these little pieces of foam dots behind, but I have popped them all up here. And then once I get this pink one centered in the middle, I will peel away the backing and place down the other 2 on either side. For the inside, I'm again on a Nina panel, and I have lined up the sentiment, "Thanks for everything you do." I'm going to stamp that out also with my Simon Says Stamp black ink. And then to finish up the bottom, I've grabbed in another one of those blue beetles, added a little glue behind that, and I'll place that just peeking up from the bottom there. Trim off that excess, add some tape to the back, and I'll place this on the inside of my card base. And that will complete card number 4. For card number 5, I've again gone ahead and laid out my cluster here. I've got one of the pink cardstock panels for my front, and I'm adding this really pretty, it's got a faded script look to it. This is again left over from when I trimmed out my pattern paper into their panels. So this measures roughly 2¼ inches wide. I've already attached the frame there since that was sticky on the back, and here I'm going to pop up these flowers and place these towards the bottom of the frame. Just going to add a few smaller pieces of foam behind the edges of this flower that is not on top of the other one. I've grabbed this Hello Sentiment. This was another one of my favorite things from the kit. I thought this was just gorgeous. So I've added some art glitter glue just behind the E and the two L's that are going to be covering the flowers in the center there. I'm going to carefully place that down. This is pretty fragile. The H and the O are sort of hanging off on their own there. So I don't think I would mail this card. It would be one that I would definitely give in person or, directly place in someone's mailbox. I then grabbed this love sentiment and I'm gonna place that right underneath the hello there. Lastly, I've grabbed another one of the chipboard stickers, this gold arrow. I'm gonna add that towards the top and then I'll trim off the excess. For the inside, I'm again on my Nina panel. I've lined up the sentiment thinking of you and I'll stamp that with my Simon Says Stamp black ink. Going to add a small piece of this wood grain pattern towards the bottom of my panel here. Trim off the excess, add some ATG to the back, and I'll place that on the inside of my card base. I think I lost some footage there, but I again attached that panel to the front of the card base using my art glitter glue. And that will complete card number 5. Here are a few close-ups of the finished cards. In the description box below, you'll find my blog post, which has additional photos and links to the supplies I used. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.